Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to talk about what's going on in Japan. We've got some news from the lovely Funamushi_Auten over on Twitter, going through the results of, well, basically a bunch of tournaments over in Japan. We have 16 tournaments over in Japan we can have a quick look at, winning city leagues, which are not the biggest tournaments ever, but they're sizable, they're very much worth pointing out. And of course, this is all with VMAX Climax legal. And one of the things that I think is very, very much worth pointing out is that of the 16 tournaments, only 2 of them were won by Mew VMAX. Now, of course, Mew VMAX is the hype deck at the moment. It is absolutely destroying online tournaments in the West, US, Europe, etc. What I will say is, do remember that deck choice and play habits are slightly different online than in real life tournaments. They're not exactly the same. It will be interesting to see, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Mew Max is not the best deck, it clearly is, but it will be interesting to see if the level of dominance continues over here. Now don't get me wrong, Mew Max is all over, but only 2 wins I do find very, very interesting indeed. It is also worth noting that the new Ice Cube does do 160 to one of your opponent's bench. Well, it's 40 for each Fusion Strike energy you've got in play, but that is one that we should take a little bit seriously. That is going to be a very good tech, and one of the lists that won with Mew did have this as a featured card, so it is worth pointing out that that Ice Cube does seem to be a little bit legit. We do see that Ice Rider is just doing extremely well. It won one of the tournaments, but we do see on the first graphic here, we've got 3 second places, 2 third places. It is a deck which is absolutely out there. And it's the same as it's always been. 2 energy, 250 damage. Really is as simple as that. It's not gotten any better, it's not gotten any worse. Essentially, it's just a fast, consistent, hard-hitting deck that's really cool. It is worth pointing out, Japan have not quite rotated yet. They'll be rotating in the new year. So you do, for instance, see that ADP did get a couple of first place finishes and a second, but it's also fair to point out that it's really not the all-dominant deck we were all worried it could be. It's okay. We do see a win and a couple of decent finishes for Malamar, which is a very good deck, a fun little pet deck of mine. Lovely Anton Boulay has done very well with it, but that is a deck to absolutely keep your eye on. That is an extremely cool deck. And we see Jolteon doing very, very well, and Jolteon is a deck which again has been doing extremely well over here. Jolteon should not really be surprising anyone. Jolteon once you bring an Elemental Badge, for just a single energy, does 100 to the active and 100 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. That's if they've got any damage on. And it builds up extremely quickly, so Jolteon is one that we absolutely could have seen coming. You will also notice there is an abundance of darkness. So there are a couple of Gengar decks that went and got first place. Interestingly enough, one of them was actually played with Weezing. That is the one that turns off abilities. Or Galarian Weezing, I suppose I should say. So I do find that kind of interesting. That is an extremely cool way of playing the deck. Turn off your opponent's abilities and basically go from there. It's very cool. And when it first came out, when it was first released, Gengar VMAX over in Japan instantly became the best deck. Now, it didn't stay there, but when it was released overnight, it became the best deck. And nowadays, let's not forget, you're hitting weakness on Mew. And I do think it's kind of as simple as that. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still an extremely powerful deck. 2 energy, 60 damage for each of your opponents, Pokemon V and GX in play. Remember, GXs, some of them are still legal over in Japan at the moment. And it's just a very powerful deck that also happens to hit weakness on Mew Max, which is probably the best deck in the format. So yeah, that's one we probably should have seen coming. Similarly, we do actually see a first place finish for Galarian Obstagoon. Now, this is the new Galarian Obstagoon, the one that I desperately want to be good, and I'm not 100% sure if it will be, but I kind of desperately want it to be. And the real hook of the deck here, I mean, to be fair, single energy, 30 damage, you can turn off one of your opponent's attacks. That can get you some sneaky wins or buy your turns. But 1 energy, 150 damage, if your opponent's active already has any damage counters on it. And let's be honest, right, if you're playing this, your Galarian Zigzagoon of choice is going to be the one that drops a damage counter when you play it. So your opponent's active is going to have a damage counter on. And this is not the most prevalent deck out there. We see a first place finish, but it doesn't really show up very well on the rest of them, which is a little bit sad. But I don't really care. The fact that it went and won one of these, and you can see in that tournament the deck it beat in the final was Mew, that is pretty gosh darned relevant. Now, Shadow Rider Calyrex, I should mention, is also there. It really does seem to be that, I mean, look, if we look at Ice Rider and Shadow Rider, they both have 1 win each. But it's fair to say Ice Rider appears more often than Shadow Rider. I still contend that Shadow Rider is one of the most ridiculous cards we've had in a long time. The ability accelerates energy while drawing cards, and then free energy minimum, 10 damage plus 30 more for each psychic energy attached to all of your Pokemon. But that can take a while to build up. Whereas something like Ice Rider, you whack 2 energy on and you're 1-hit KOing any Pokemon V and 2-hit KOing VMAXs. That builds up very quickly. And I do think it really is as simple as that. Now, there is one deck which is doing very, very well over in Japan, which is not doing well over here, and if I may be as bold as to say so, will not be doing very well over here anytime soon. It's Vikavolt. And the reason is extremely simple. We have rotated Charjabug, and Japan have not yet rotated Charjabug. It really is that simple. It's a new Vikavolt that for 2 Lightning, 2 Colourless Energy, you discard 2 of them, 2 Lightning Energy, and do 200 to one of your opponent's Pokemon, active or benched. But the thing is, we've got Charjabug, which you can attach as a double Lightning Energy, and it doesn't count as your attachment for the turn. So, okay, fine, it's a stage 2 and that kind of sucks, but you can literally go Charjabug, Twin Energy, 200 damage. There is a reason why we see Vikavolt doing pretty gosh darn well in Japan. Sure, we don't have any wins, but we do see a 2nd place finish. We see 3 other top 4s. It's not a ubiquitous deck that's absolutely everywhere, but it is out there, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely out there. But there are a couple of decks that I look at here and they completely stand out to me. Now, one of them is not actually one of the main ones I want to talk about. We only saw a single top 4 finish, but we saw a top 4 finish for Boltund with Pikachu V Union. Now, I don't think Boltund is the next great deck. I do think it's a little bit underpowered. I think a good player with a good list can have a good run at a tournament, as clearly happened here, but I don't think it's the next powerhouse deck. But I do find it very interesting. Firstly, we don't see V Unions being played and having a lot of success very often, so that's kind of cool. But secondly, Pikachu V Union was in Celebrations and only in Celebrations. It's a promo over here. It's already becoming harder and harder to find. Soon you won't be able to find that card. If Pikachu V Union becomes like a legitimately good card, that could cause some problems competitively, just putting it out there. But probably the most striking deck here is Lunala. The Lunala from Celebrations went and won a tournament. And look, we are talking one tournament over in Japan. Let's not overreact. This is not necessarily some phenomenal deck which is about to set the world by storm. We are talking about 1 win. Okay? Let's be clear. But even having said that, this is not a deck that anybody took seriously. It's one that a few people like myself went, hey, that's got a little bit of potential. Alright, to stage 2 might be a bit too slow. And then honestly, most people kind of ignored. And it might be worth revisiting that just a little bit. You see, for 2 energy, you double the number of damage counts on each of your opponent's Pokemon. And here it's really about the maths. If you get 60 damage on a Pokemon V, doubles to 120, doubles to 140. That's a KO on Pokemon V. Now, Pokemon VMAX, you're really looking for 80 usually. 80 doubles to 160, doubles again to 320. You might sometimes need 90 to go up to 36 for some of the really big VMAXs, but generally you're looking at 60 for Pokemon V and 80 for VMAX. And what you end up doing here, and yes, I know it's rotated and I'm very sorry, coughing. The combination of coughing and Roxy. Because we've got that really rather nice coughing, whereby if it's discarded with Roxy, you drop 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon, and then you basically just keep going for that. Now, there are, of course, other things that you can do. Inteleon becomes a really good option, and bearing in mind you're playing a Stage 2 deck, I am talking about the Inteleon that drops damage counters and the Inteleon that searches trainers, because again, you've got to set up a Stage 2 that can be a little bit of a pain in the neck. But you generally got coughing and Inteleon, and you go from there. Now, you do want to be stopping your opponent healing here, for pretty obvious reasons. So you've got the Mr. Mime with Scoop Up block. Now, that stops you picking up any damaged Pokemon. Again, that has rotated here, not in Japan. Over here, we do still luckily have that Mimikyu, which has got Heal Jamming, which says your opponent's bench Pokemon can't be healed. And then you kind of go from there. And maybe the fact that we've lost Roxy means it's not going to be good enough. And it's always going to be a bit of an also-ran. I don't know, if I'm honest with you. But I do like this, ladies and gentlemen. I do like this very much indeed. It is a deck which I think you should take seriously. But I am more than willing to agree and admit, as sad as this makes me, that it is better in Japan. I don't think it's like Vikavolt, where it's viable in Japan and not viable over here. I don't think we're that extreme. But I do think it's worth pointing out that it is a lot better over in Japan than it is over here, as sad as that makes me to say. And the other deck, and look, I ranked all of the Pokemon VMAXs the other day, and I got a couple messages from people telling me that I'd put Dracozolt too low. And I told them that I basically don't like Dracozolt, and that I don't consider it to be that good a card, and there are other Pokemon I like more. And essentially, the more time goes by, the more I'm going to be proven wrong, it looks like. And I don't mind, I'm cool with being proven wrong. Because you're telling me, okay, I mean, on the one hand, I'm wrong and sure, yeah, embarrassing and all of that. But on the other hand, there's this cool, weird deck that I wasn't expecting to be good, which is all of a sudden looking really good. I am absolutely okay with that, ladies and gentlemen. That seems fine by me. Dracozolt did go and take down one tournament, which is rather lovely. And, you know, again, let's not overreact. It's not all over these tournament results. It's not like it is absolutely crushing the metagame or anything like that. But it went and won a tournament, and it is absolutely something we should start taking a little bit seriously. Now, for those of you that may have forgotten, and I wouldn't blame you because I still don't really buy Dracozolt like that, what we've got here is an attack that does 60 damage, but during your opponent's next turn, if it's damaged by an attack, you put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Or you can just do a flat 200. Or indeed, you've got the attack on Dracozolt V, which does 30 damage, but it stops your opponent attaching energy cards from their hand to the defending Pokemon, though they can still attach to the bench, so that's not quite as disruptive as it sounds initially. And there are different ways to play this. One of the ways we see this played is with a bit of disruption, Path to the Peak to turn off abilities, bit of Crushing Hammer, all of that. But being able to force your opponent to take damage when they attack, or potentially not attack, and then be building up big attacks after that. And some of the lists we've been seeing are literally just for free Dracozolt line that just play Dracozolt and nothing else. And I kind of like it, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, if you're playing a single energy attack, you can then start mucking around with Cheryl and all of that healing, because you don't mind losing a single energy. And this seems like it might be a deck that I was wrong about. And that's okay. So to quickly sum up then, on the first image here, we can see we got that one win from Obstagoon, one from Mew, one from Lunala. 8 different decks winning, which I do find kind of cool. Gengar, Lunala, Leafeon, Ice Rider, Calyrex. We've got Galarian, Obstagoon, Mew, ADP, and Dracozolt. And you'll see a lot of the usual culprits are there. Lots of Ice Rider, lots of Gengar, lots of Mew, lots of Jolteon, and, a couple of Vikavolt hanging around there as well. On the second lot of results, these have been up throughout the video, but just to really sum it up together at the end, we see another run of decks, not the all different from before, but there's 8 different decks here. We've got Shadow Rider, Calyrex, ADP, Eternatus, Malamar. We've got Trevenant and Dusknoir, Rapid Strike, Urshifu, Mew, and Gengar. And then if you look at the rest of the results, there's a lot of Gengar and Malamar and Mew and ADP and all the kind of things we would usually expect. But this is not showing one deck is hideously dominant. It is not seeming to show that Mew Mew is an unstoppable force. And it is worth pointing out, just one more time, that Japan has not rotated and we have. But again, if you look at their winning decks here, there's a huge amount of overlap. Their winning decks look a lot like our winning decks. So maybe Mew Mew is not going to be some unstoppable force going forward into the future. Maybe there are answers. And I do think when we get back to proper in real life tournaments, I do think it is going to get a little bit better. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Some familiar favourites and some truly weird decks I frankly didn't see coming. But now it's over to you guys. I want to know what you think about this. I want to know if any of these decks seem like pretenders. I want to know who you think the real great decks are. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.